Hey folks, how's it going?
Hello.
Hey,
Hey, how are
hi.
you?
Good. Well, let me get logged into this doc. All right, today is May 14th. Let me get that going. Sign into the doc if you haven't ready, and put the agenda in here, put the standing items, and we'll kick things off. Feel free to add agenda items to the bottom. Uh, let's see. I signed into the doc. New faces. I don't remember if I've seen everyone here, but I feel like I've seen. Maybe not. Maybe not. Yeah. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, Jesse. I'm Abhinand. I'm teammates with Hemant here. We've been working with you. Primarily, Hemant has been working with you regarding the multiple things. One was
Yeah.
last year, I think, the Lib CNB, and this year, like for the RFC for the launcher, right? So I'm just here to hear in also. I'm from the same team. Yeah.
Sure.
Nice to meet you.
Awesome. Yeah. Nice to meet you too. Let me quickly go through the standing items. There's nothing marked as open. Nothing marked as ready for review. Nothing in voting. I don't have a TOC update regarding graduation. I don't see anyone here that would, so I think that's fine. Um, yeah, let's just jump into the agenda items you're adding. So yeah, the launcher decoupling. So uh, yeah, let's see. It's been a bit since I've been out of town a little while ago, so it's been a little bit since I've kind of looked at this. Um, yeah, let's. I guess let's talk about it a little bit. What Yeah, I played around with creating a smaller launcher, which I think is fine. It will probably do the job if we wanted to go in that direction. Um, I think having a symlink to something on a run image can also work. I think there's a lot of additional guards we have to put in place to make sure that when someone does a rebase, that the image that they chose has something there. For instance, right? So in the case of not Google, where you're actually doing a pack rebase, maybe you're using the Google Builder, so the run image that it comes with has something. At some point, a new version of that gets released, and let's say that the launcher was omitted from the public release of that image. We want to make sure that pack rebase like stops the user and doesn't let them create an image that won't run in that case, right? Because unlike the build process where we've explicitly put the launcher into the release, we're basically just hoping that something's there in the base image with a symlink, right? Um, on rebase at least. So that's kind of my main uh, caveat there is that we would want to make sure that rebase does additional validation. But I think a symlink is probably fine if you wanted to. Yeah, I guess if we want to put this up for voting, or if there's more changes that you would like to put in the RFC before we put it up for voting, um, based on
Um,
all the feedback.
yeah, like based on feedback, I have updated it. So I think it's pointing the latest version itself.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Yeah, well, yeah. Let me know what else do you want to talk about regarding this RFC? Because I think we can just put it in voting and solicit more feedback. I need to reread the changes to
Mm.
see how they land, and I'll probably have another round of comments on some of the finer details between now and then. Go ahead.
Yeah. Two questions. Can you explain how the voting process works, like in general? Because I'm not too familiar. Sorry. Once you.
Yeah, so I think it's documented in the in one of these things, the community,
Okay.
I think is probably where it is, like the governance and all that stuff. So I don't know all the the right words specifically to use here, but I believe it's basically as long as no one disagrees from the leadership or governance folks, then it can be approved. So it's more of just like someone can block it, but it doesn't require a consensus across like five people or something like that.
Got it. Like how many people are there in the committee like right now?
So I think the folks that we can maybe see that if we look at the, let's see, it doesn't say approving. So I think it's going to be four or five. There's four or five
Got
people
it.
that have votes, so it's a fairly small group of individuals.
Right. On the RFC itself, like, are we inclining towards doing it as a Rust binary right now? Is that where we are standing, or is it like going to be a Golang, the launcher bit?
No, so the launcher decoupling, the RFC that's written is someone else providing the launcher binary. So I think the if we wanted to drop this RFC and do a Rust version of the launcher, I think that's fine. But the RFC as it's written is specifically uh, saying that the platform run image chosen will have a launcher that it is responsible for maintaining compatibility with the images that could run against that version of the run image.
That isn't. Sorry, I didn't follow. I mean, that isn't
So
responsible.
no, so the platform would be responsible for
Got it. Got it.
providing a launcher that can run any combination of apps
Got it.
that could have been built against that run image.
Got it. The reason why we ask for Rust is like basically, I mean, because you brought it up, I think it was a great idea in
Yes.
general.
Hmm.
Is that like even after this, we would still be using the CNB provided launcher, right? As you would
Hmm.
follow. Like, so what would be like nice is like like if we have the feature like for sim linking or being able to specify the path for the launcher, yes, that's one. And then the second thing is even then after that we'll be adding the launcher to our base image, which is what you have, and that would harden the boundaries from what we understand, right? That's a bit more secure
Yeah.
compared to Golang. So that's why we wanted to know. And but are we saying that we need to create a new RFC for that to request for launcher itself being given as a Rust?
Um, yeah, I think so. I think we would need to have, convert launcher to Rust, and I think we would have to have some, success criteria on, what does that look like? How does it really work? And like I said, I've generated one before. It's not the first time I've done it. Like just kind of messing around with a Rust launcher. It's not a large scoped item. It's more of I think I even pushed it up. And so let me bring up the life cycle because I do have there's a Rust launcher. Is
Okay,
it
nice.
here? I think it's here that I've already. No, it is very you know. Yeah, so 2 weeks ago I did this, and so this is the actual life cycle bit, so I could test whether it worked, which I think it did not. If it did not pass all the tests, so that was one of the things that I was
Got it. Okay,
working
it's
with.
good to.
So I pushed up my own launcher binaries in here, and so yeah, that I built with
Got it.
AI assistants or whatever. Yeah, so I think we would need another RFC there to replace the official launcher. But, we don't need an RFC if you wanted to create your own launcher and potentially talk about donating it later as like the upstream, like an upstream launcher replacement or something like that, right? Like if you ended up taking the surface area for launcher and creating it, and maybe it does everything exactly the same, or maybe everything except for a couple things exactly the same. This RFC that we have here, the decoupling, would allow you to move to that as long as you don't rely on those features. And then we could talk about what it would look like to sort of merge that into the broader ecosystem. Like I think that could be its own discussion with its own RFC on okay, we have this project, we like it, it's experimental. Let's let it run, figure out the gates in which we decide that whether or not it'll eventually replace the full launcher. So I think that's just different discussions, but similar paths.
Got it. And just like the last question on this RFC itself, like, are we also aligning that the launcher itself will be released independent of the life cycle? The release cycle of launcher will be independent for us to be able.
Definitely not. No, no, we definitely don't. We don't have any plans to change our release structure. So it would be up to the platform to extract out the launcher from the latest release of Lifecycle. So in your case, you would pull this in your own, have your own automation every time we release a release, and then you can update your run image at whatever cadence you want. Yeah, so I don't expect to decouple and release like different images for launcher or anything at this point because it is the same image. It's actually just a symlink to launcher inside of the OCI artifact that we produced today. Um,
Okay, I see.
and I don't think the RFC says anything about distribution, if I'm not mistaken. There's nothing in there about distributing the launcher separately.
Uh,
It just says that
I think
they're decoupled. Yeah.
no, no, I think earlier in some of this working group meeting, I think we discussed this. Uh, Not sure what the stand was, but I think mostly uh, it was an line that there will be a separate release for launcher or something. Not sure, like maybe we can have this as a part of our RFC itself.
Yeah, you can put it in the RFC. RFC is mostly, you know, uh, yeah, like we will have to have the spec changes and stuff like that listed out here as well. I know it listed optional if there are any spec changes that come about. Um, but I will, upfront be like, I don't really want to get into probably releasing more things. Like we barely have a number of contributors to sit here and release lifecycle on the cadence that's required. So, uplifting all that automation to produce two images isn't it doesn't seem like it would be worth the squeeze. Like we're already producing this image as fast as we reasonably can, because it is one go binary, right? So actually building it, it wouldn't change anything on the cadence. It's not like Lifecycle it's not its own Go module. It's not its own repo. So it still has to go through all the same dependabot, pack acceptance test, everything that happens in the repo today. So I don't think that trying to say that they're going to release differently would do anything other than the packaging part of it. Um, other than it being its own OCI image, which is exactly the same binary that's going to be in the existing OCI image. So I'm curious to understand more about what you would want by them being different if it's the same Go launcher.
Yeah, like uh, just the main use case that this will solve is like uh, our concern was that if it's released with lifecycle, so there is no dependency of launcher on the lifecycle release. Basically, nothing coupled up with the lifecycle, and having an independent release is basically kind of a guarantee that launcher can be used separately. If that can be ensured with the lifecycle release itself, so I think we don't have a problem with using it from lifecycle release itself.
Yeah, because if you look at the OCI image, like this all is a single binary. So even though we call it launcher, it is still the lifecycle binary. And so we're already producing that in an OCI image. We just have a symlink called launcher to it. So there's nothing, it's the exact same binary. They don't have, different repos, different Go mods or anything like that. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you see a concern wherein, so the way we are thinking of solving this problem for Google, right, is at build time, lifecycle would be a certain version. The creator would be a certain version. Like say the current version is 0.21.9, right?
Mhm.
But do you see a concern with launcher being updated in the base image, at least for the patch version, and for it to be going out of sync? A concern for reliability in general if these two go out of sync a lot. I mean, if the major and minor version are the same, does incrementing the launcher cause a problem for the booting up of the app itself, as long as the platform API and the buildpacks API are compatible with that?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? I think it's testing a boundary we haven't exposed before, right?
I see.
We
Okay.
do have the platform API, and the build pack APIs, and so launcher respects those. And I believe in theory it should not be a problem, but in practice we haven't split this out, right? Because every single app that's built comes with the launcher version, that was used to build that app to begin with. So, there's no chance for there to be any inconsistencies where
Right.
the
Right.
platform
Right.
version prepared something for a launcher that is not expecting that to be this way. But
Got
I don't believe that there is a very high risk. I will say of problems. I don't believe there's a high risk.
got it. And that's for us to figure out. But we would be the first uh,
Hmm.
client customer to do that, right? To have these two going
Yes.
out of sync. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I don't think there's a massive risk there in any way. It doesn't. The launcher is fairly tightly scoped. I
Yes.
think I'd be a little more concerned with potentially if you've got really old apps. Like you said, patch versions seem fine, but I just don't really know what it's going to look like over time. Like as you collect apps that haven't been built in a year, at some point you're going to have a launcher version that is, a year newer than those apps. And like, the drift can continue. Uh, but maybe that's okay. Like I said, the launcher is it's kind of a done
Right,
project
right,
for the most part. It doesn't really have a lot of features being added all the time. But it is something we're going to have to keep in mind for RFCs that affect that boundary.
right. And as long as we honor the major and minor to be the exact same, that's where I was asking, right? Like, so we would never have these two drifting apart too much. So we'll make sure that the
Yeah.
major and minor of the launcher and the creator would be the same. Just the patch version would start drifting.
Yeah.
That's where even I like,
And
as long as the platform and build packs API are honored, like then if we figure out a way to keep them honored, then even I don't see a risk. But I just wanted to know if there was
yeah.
anything which we
Yeah.
can
I
foresee.
also don't see a risk. I think, when we talk about you juggling multiple launchers. So, let's say this year it's 021 and then next year it's 022.
Right.
Um, at some point, like as soon as 022 comes out, like the platform, we don't really keep 021. Like we don't release new versions of 021 like lifecycle in
Oh,
general. So
I
we're
see.
not going to be producing 021.10 once we produce 022.1. We don't even really backport, for severe CVEs we might, but we're not going to do go bump versions for those previous versions like ever. So you're kind of on your own. Once we release 022 dot whatever, you need to be patching your old versions of lifecycle if you're going to go this route, right?
Hmm.
Or we need to move to something that is, needs less patching, which is kind of the whole discussion on, Rust. And if we can shrink there's less surface area in general. Because right now it is the same binary, which means that it has all the dependencies that lifecycle has that it needs during the build process to do the launch, and they're two different tasks. So the launch task is much smaller scoped, but because it's the same, for convenience, it's the same repo and the same binary. It has a lot of surface area that has a lot of patching that needs to happen because it has Docker and stuff like that. But like you probably don't need some of those things in the launcher to begin with, because the launcher itself is not dealing with the Docker daemon, so like it doesn't need that entire Moby vendor dependency. Um, but it has it now because it's the same repo. So if we move to its own repo, and if we move to its own repo, I would probably suggest something like Rust. And if we do Rust, then maybe we don't have launcher patching very often at all, and it can be on its own release cycle. But again, I don't know that we would backport, major versions of a launcher kind of regardless, like because we don't do that for life cycle. But it would need less maintenance in general, I think.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this makes sense. Like if we release 0.22 instead of 0.1.10, but so I see that sometimes it's the case that some build pack and platform API support is dropped in the new lifecycle version. So in that case, also, like let's say just a single version itself, which supports all the dropped APIs, will that be kind of will be like a new patch will be released for that also, or is it like the older build pack API and platform API, the application deployed with those versions should run with a CV, lifecycle with a CV in it?
Yeah, yeah, I think you've got, yeah, I think you understand it. Yeah, like there is at some point if we release a new version of Lifecycle that drops support for like platform version 0.10, um, we're not going, that previous version of Lifecycle is going to be the version of the launcher that is, safe for those apps forever, basically, right? Because the idea is you rebuild your app and therefore get a new lifecycle. So if yeah, so that's going to be a risk that you take by decoupling these, right? It's like you're going to have to, track these users who are using this platform version, and they're going to necessarily need to at least upgrade to some version that can eventually be a different platform version. Because once we do drop platform versions, where there's nothing we do to like, keep those other platform versions alive.
Mm, yeah.
We have no plans to drop a platform version as of now, but it will probably happen in some future. Yeah, that's the part that scares me is the decoupling. It's just we are coupled now through just the fact that this is the way we've been doing it forever. Apps get released this way, and suddenly the idea of, holding onto your launcher yourself sounds good in theory, but in practice, I think there's some sharp edges here where you're gonna have to you're not going to get rid of CVEs totally because you're going to have to juggle some old version of Lifecycle to run these apps that haven't been touched by customers in some amount of time, or you're going to have to accept that the risk that you run a newer launcher and kind of hope that it works until platform versions deviate, and then only when platform deviate do you sort of trust that you need to make those customers make changes to get to the next platform version. Um,
Yeah, a redeployment is good idea, right?
let's see, anything else on the agenda? That was the only thing on the agenda. Anything else we want to talk about this before we bounce the meeting?
I think Vinan, anything you want to do?
I think I'm good. Yeah, nothing for this meeting. If you have further questions, we'll get back next time.
So I will be out of town next week, but I do want to um, maybe start voting next week. So let's make this for for this week or at least into next week. And if you want to make it 2 weeks, that's fine. Take another look at your RFC now that we've had this discussion.
Right.
Do a round of self updating here, and like let's figure out whether this is going to meet your goals, because I definitely don't want to do this because like I said, you're going to be the only folks probably doing this, and also I don't know when this will actually happen, right? So the RFC is just the process, and hopefully you're going to help contribute and get this feature across the line. But regardless of that, if you're going to be the only folks using it, let's make sure that it solves your problem. Make sure that you've kind of thought through the limitations and problems that we talked about today, and then I'd like to go through it and review it, and obviously all the other folks on the build packs leadership stuff will take a peek too, and then we
Got
can
it.
put it into official voting maybe like next week if that sounds okay with you.
Sounds good. And if we want the Rust, I think we would need to file in different RFC, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but I
And
think that
then
will still I think this will be good for that anyway, right? Like
yes,
decoupling
exactly. Yeah.
would allow us to kind of ease into
Yes.
that without just like suddenly shipping a Rust launcher that
Yes.
maybe is yeah, yeah, anyway.
Yeah. One last thing, like let's say, just to understand in terms of like t-shirt sizing or timelines, like let's say it's like approved like roughly 2 weeks or something from your
Sure.
side. Is there rough t-shirt sizing or timelines after that based on the availability or
None.
some?
Yeah,
None, right?
this is mostly just, it is just an open source project. We don't
Right, right,
get paid to work on this, so it
right, right,
is
right.
yeah, so it just kind of is, it is what it is. I would like to do it. I'm the only lifecycle maintainer, I think, right now,
Oh,
basically on
wow.
the
Okay.
day to day. So like it is pretty much, this is mostly a lifecycle change.
Mm,
I don't think it has any build pack changes. There's no distribution changes. So I think if we limit it to life cycle only, then it doesn't seem incredibly hard, especially in the age of
right.
Copilot and Claude and everything. I think we can work together in getting this shipped, and then uh, I guess really the spec changes, if there's any spec changes. That's one thing I'd like to kind of understand more is like if we did this exactly as it said, is there any spec changes? I don't think there's any spec changes because there's already the launcher is sort of its own piece of the spec, and it doesn't. I don't think it dictates that it is actually the launcher or actually the life cycle, and that
Hmm.
it has to be. There's probably some stuff about the launcher being included in the image though, so that we're probably going to have to update some spec changes. So we'll need to bump the spec to say that the layer can be like a pointer to a launcher somewhere. So there probably is at least a minor wording change there.
Got it. Sounds good.
But
But
yeah, as fast as you're willing to help commit, I'm happy to review and push through and get spec changes and hassle people to get spec changes reviewed for the platform and everything. So I'm happy to help.
got it. Like, will that be like a design or an ADR or something required for this after that? How does
Um,
like a low level
so yeah,
design doc?
once the RFC gets approved, then it's just go time whenever. So basically, just
Okay.
create a items to kind of track the work here. But then uh, that's more just a meta thing. Like you could start on the PR now to kind of if you really wanted to kind of get an idea of what this is going to look like and test it out and really kick the tires and
Yeah.
then as soon as the platform as soon as the spec changes land, then we make sure the code's guarded on the platform API, and
Mm,
there's
got
nothing
it.
blocking it. Yeah,
Got it. All right. Thanks a lot. That's all I had from my
yeah,
side.
awesome.
Yeah. Thank
I
you.
see you're here as well, Colin. You just hanging out, or do you have any agenda item?
A little bit of both. I have, since you're here, I do have a couple of questions around life cycle and around pack. And I think we probably have touched on it with you before. We've been touching on it lightly on the last several calls. Like we're working on trying to rebuild the get our pipeline up to spec on NEO, and we're still hesitant to adopt K-Pack, but we've been referencing the word K-Pack and all that kind of stuff. But um, when we initially tried to maybe just run pack, uh, within a container to
Yeah,
just do the build and everything for us, um, we didn't realize the dependency on the Docker daemon or the Docker socket, and we don't want to expose that.
yeah,
Um, and I don't know if we're still touching on that, and we're evaluating just like rebuilding everything from scratch to be compliant with the platform spec. But um, if we're able to properly just adopt lifecycle and adopt pack, then it'll save us a bunch of time. But I was going to ask who,
yeah.
if it's maybe it's you, but who the right person is to talk more deeply about that Docker daemon requirement, and how we might work on decoupling that, and
Right.
and then just getting that, just doing some initial maybe design on that, and then getting that back in a more formal fashion if it looks like something that can be adopted by the project, but and contributing that
Yeah.
back.
What are
But
you
is that you
What are
or is
you
that someone else?
thinking? So I'm not a pack maintainer, but you know, I cosplay as
But
one
it uses
sometimes.
lifecycle.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So life cycle itself is, of course, the meat of what does the the
right.
the work. And what are you thinking? Um, if you don't want a Docker daemon, what's the kind of what are you thinking there? So like, I know you're just trying to make a platform and using, you because you can use Pack in like a GitHub action today, right? But it's going to require a Docker daemon or a Podman, like socket or something, to create
Yeah. So
containers. Because Pack necessarily creates containers to do the work because it is first and foremost a CLI. So kind of what's in your head about what would it look like if we dropped the Docker daemon?
we're already running if we're running in a container, then we're already on a host machine that has, it's being run with Docker or, oh man, sorry, I'm driving and talking and
Oh no,
I'm
you're
coming
fine.
up to like a huge traffic jam. Great, this is awesome. So make it to the office on time. Anyway, we would just run this inside of Kubernetes, right? It's a container workload running pack. And so we just need a way to, instead of exposing the host system's Docker socket, which is an issue, right? Just generate maybe even the container, like the Docker file or something. I just need a way to eject and say, okay, now we're going to take this output from pack and go build and run that container. Or we just need a better way to interact with it so that we can do it in a more Kubernetes native fashion.
Yeah.
Today we're
That's
running
where
Lifecycle Creator directly, but we want the other hooks.
Yes.
We want the benefits the package TOML support and some other things that like come with pack.
I see. That's what I was about to ask, because obviously Creator is similar to Pack for most use cases, but there are some, Pack features that don't exist in Lifecycle today. And so I think what your, it sounds like what your experience are like kind of the gaps of like Project Toml support. What other gaps, what other features of Pack do you see needing outside of Project Toml support?
Really, it's
Like, are
kind of
you
like Pack does
pulling, because you
everything.
need to run on the image, right? Or like, when you do a build, like, are you expecting in the Kubernetes land to run the builder image as your base and execute creator? Because that's what you're doing now, it sounds like, right?
Right, we're executing Creator, and then we're building. We're joining. We're just running a pod with multiple containers, right? And so we're able to create new workloads and run those via pods or deployment definitions or jobs or whatever else. But Pack kind of does everything that we need. But it seems like we're just going to have to go rewrite it ourselves and like kind of implement our own pipeline for that, when maybe the shorter path is just to remove the strict Docker requirement, where it seems like the Docker requirement is most closely tied to just the publication step of the image.
Yeah, I mean, it's also doing the pulling of all the build packs. It's doing, so, if you do a pack build and you pass in a list of build packs, it's going to use the,
right.
Docker daemon to pull those build packs depending on what kind of build pack, reference it is. It obviously pulls the run image, right? So I guess, are you thinking that there might be a path where you as a publisher have like your company builder and it has pack on it in addition to lifecycle, and then pack runs in like in container mode, which would then not do a pull of any builder, and it would run what it normally would run in container, just run it current, like basically in the current context. Is that kind of what you're after?
Maybe we're saying the same thing. If I rephrase it, but I position it as, a developer can run Pack on their local machine and interact with it. I just need to be able to run it the same way from a pod. And then knowing whatever, like having hooks in place to be able to say, be able to eject this into a Kubernetes workload, or take the output from that step when the daemon's required, right, and be able to take that and then run another workload. Like I almost just kind of need to get my hands into that process a little bit, but I don't.
Okay, I see. So
I
you
just don't
actually
want to
want to
rewrite
run
Pack from
pack.
scratch.
I see. So you don't want to run pack in your cluster. You want pack to control workloads in your cluster.
No,
Is that
Pack
right?
would run in the cluster.
It would run in, but it would spawn new workloads in the cluster, or is it all in
could.
one container?
We can write a container that, like, we can have that logic in the machine that runs. Like I could today, in theory, like run Pack directly on the Kubernetes host, and that would work. But obviously, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It's almost like
Yeah.
I want to run pack in a container that's rootless, I guess maybe is
Yep.
a way to look at that too. Um,
Yeah.
and I know that's not the original intention of it,
Mhm.
but trying to figure out a way, like, is there a not, it doesn't seem like it would be all that extensive, but like, can we do that with, is that a reasonable feature request for packers to be able to introduce this ability? Or, and obviously we need to kind of dissect what that looks like formally.
Yeah.
Or is the real alternative path, well, actually, you got to go maybe use life cycle and other things, but you got to write your whole thing from scratch. Like KPAC today,
Mhm.
I wish was just operator hooks around pack. And we know it's not. We know it's all
Sure.
this, it's
Yeah.
custom built stuff to the platform spec. And we're concerned about adopting it because of the maintainership on it. We'd
Sure.
almost rather, maybe it's just pack. Maybe pack is the right place because it's not that hard to write the other stuff.
Yeah.
Or maybe that is a way to convert
Yeah.
the two projects. But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds good. Like I'm having a hard time understanding how in reality it would work. Like, I'm just thinking of like I've got a Kubernetes workload. It's got pack on it. I run pack on it. Um, you know, so pack currently manages a bunch of containers to do its job, right? Trusted, untrusted.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that it does, shuttling data between them through files, right? And mounts. And so I'm
So
curious to
it's
yeah.
almost like instead of I need to have an option where instead of the daemon, I can point it at the Kubernetes API, something.
Okay. So that's what I was getting at. So I think yeah, you want
Yeah.
to effectively make pack Kubernetes aware. Like instead of using a Docker
Yes.
daemon, it could use a Kubernetes context, which would be then scoped to whatever permissions you've allowed that, Kubernetes context to have, which
Right.
will almost certainly have to be booting containers, right? Like I don't know,
And
so
it
for
and it
one
definitely
container,
will. And
yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
then at that point, it can use Kubernetes to access the local registry, whatever
hmm
registries I need defined for that, and it'll reuse existing credentials and all that good stuff. Like it doesn't seem like a
yeah,
reach.
yeah, yeah. I think
But I
so
know it's like
pack
we chose Docker though because it was the most common tool.
Yeah, it definitely would have to. I think the hurdles I see would be the mounts specifically. Creating containers, yeah, Docker, Kubernetes sounds fine. But Pack is mounting like the current directory it's in as a mount into all these things, and then using mounts to kind of
Yep.
push data between them. And so, in the case of something kicked off from a Kubernetes pod, it's going to basically have to have a path to create a container and then also somewhere to push the source code from the workspace
Yep.
so that
And
it
we've
can
already got all
be,
that stuff.
hydrated. Yeah. Yeah, but what's the
Yeah, and that
interface look
stuff's
like,
already
I
all
guess,
wired
for
up.
Pack
Wired up.
is kind of what I'm wondering. Is like, how does
Yeah,
Pack?
like we had
Yeah.
to wire all that stuff up for Creator anyway,
hmm
and how it's being used today. So we already have the mounting logic to get the source code. We already we already have the workflows to clone from Git on behalf of the user, put it into S3 or mount it directly via file. Like we've got all that stuff around it. It's just
Yeah.
literally kind
I
of like
see.
the today since we use Creator, it's like, well, we'll have to write our own logic of how to use the project toml, or we could, man, I really wish
Yeah.
I could just run pack here. It just seems so close.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be worth a POC and discussion. Like I think it's interesting. Uh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what will break because I don't work on Pack that often, but I think, Pack has enough hooks in it. Yeah.
Right. That's what I was going to
Yeah.
ask is like if we did, if like Rudra and David or like some of my other engineers that are working on this needed to
Yeah.
talk to somebody specifically about pack or get in there, like who is that
hmm
that I should point them at?
Yeah, so So that's gonna be I think it's gonna be one. That's gonna be
Okay.
I think that's gonna be the in the pack CLI uh Slack channel is gonna kind of be where you wanna jump into this. And I definitely would tag me in that. Because I think there's gonna be a lot of like, initial be like, oh, there's no way this works, which I think is true today, but it doesn't have to be true tomorrow. And so I think there's a lot of I don't know if the Kubernetes experience is there from everybody. Um, so I would love to be a part of that to kind of figure out to help find and pave a path for Pack to be Kubernetes aware. I think that would be interesting and good. I do think that there's a lot around like the Git cloning and stuff that I would like to kind of pick your brain on at some point and figure out like what does that look like for someone who's not your company? Like if Pack did this, is like how is Pack going to take the current source code and then give it to another container using just Kubernetes primitives potentially, right? Is it
Yeah,
volume?
100%.
Is it like what is it going to do that? Because Git cloning sounds good for you, but it's not good for folks where there's no Git server somewhere around and like they're pack building from a context that was given to them, and those workloads don't have access to fetch them again. So you've got to shuttle that. Maybe they mutated stuff to get to this point, so it's not in Git anywhere. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a bunch of stuff that we're continuing to work on with Apinio,
yeah.
because it's all the
Yeah, I
whole
think volumes would
original
be
idea.
interesting. Like I think, just like Pack uses volumes, I think, we could probably make Pack use volumes uh for, getting the data over to another workload. It's probably going to change depending on what kind of EKS or Kubernetes provider like EKS or AKS that you have. But maybe there's like some primitives we can hook back into where it can there might have to be some setup, but maybe you can tell it what you use for storage and stuff like that.
Yeah, we can template the what we do today is we actually have a templating engine around those workloads. We even do like templates for Helm charts and things like that. So it's pretty straightforward today to be able to
Nice.
provide like a base template for the resources that need to be run, which may contain the information like the storage class and other things that need to be
There you
run
go. Yeah.
in a way that
That's
doesn't
that's easy,
bloat
right? Yeah.
the CLI options. You know,
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
having some defaults that work with like a bare Kubernetes install and then like letting folks define templates seems like a reasonable uh, extension point to kind of allow whatever you need, right? Yeah.
yeah. If I set up the container that's going to run Pack and have all of
Yeah.
the even at
That's
that
good.
point have all of the resources and things I need mounted, including the volume where the output, like my tar GZ or whatever, everything's going to go, and then have enough. Once that completes successfully, then you're basically running Pack as in a init container at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
and then you have your other workloads, which then go spin up the other things in your own way for your own platform. But it provides that good like platform engineer
Yep.
provides the framework. App developer chooses some options and their app gets built and deployed in the way that they need based on the options that are available and provided by the platform engineers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
one
makes
use
sense
case that we have,
in theory. Yeah.
one use case that we're already using it for, and we're interested in the project HOML for the inline build packs or the composable build packs and all that stuff,
Sure.
but allowing agentic workloads to modify source code directly and then auto rebuild on
Mm-hmm.
the fly. So like having that pipeline closely associated with the code directly at like the S3 level has been
Right.
incredibly powerful and really fun. But we need more
Yeah.
maturity around the.
Yeah. And I think the Project Humble one is you know, uh, an interesting one because I think both Google and Salesforce and Heroku have all implemented basically Project Toml. I think leveraging Pack as the library to do the heavy lifting, so that customers have a consistent experience. But I think with inline build packs, it's not as clean, for instance, right? Like I'm pretty sure there's multiple implementations out there that are very similar, but probably not exactly the same, because of yeah, the fact
Oh yeah,
that this is a pack feature, not a lifecycle feature. Um, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
and it can be up to our platform to help compile the project toml that then gets passed in, and we could effectively allow people to build CI/CD pipelines that way based on a catalog of builders that are available. Yada yada. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah, I like the idea. I think, yeah, I'd like to explore it some more. So ping me in any threads that you want to talk about this. And I'm happy to lend a hand and lend some thoughts. And I don't think it's crazy enough that people are going to be like, absolutely not. I don't think it's out of the purview of Pack. I think I would, it would be great to kind of maybe get away from Docker in some ways for, the Linux folks and like who uses just like, Minikube or something. So it would be nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Cool, that's great. I'll
Awesome.
I'll let the guys know, and it'll be pinging you and Juan, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Cool,
so.
perfect. Yeah, I appreciate
All
it.
right. Well, thanks so much. All right. We'll talk to you later. See ya.
Yeah, thanks.